Well, hello, scrappers. Welcome back to my channel. Mike here. And just a quick recap back in episodes 1 and 2 of me working with Jobin's scrap from Taiwan that has a lot of palladium plating on it, I stripped some of the plating off, found a fairly efficient way to do it, I think, although there's probably room for improvement, and wound up with this flask of green palladium nitrate right here. Now it's time to try and get the palladium out of this and recover it. So let's try cementing on copper. See how that goes. I think we are ready to try and cement out the palladium on some copper. Got a nice coil of copper in this beaker. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pour this in. I'm going to try and get a time lapse of it with my GoPro. We'll see what happens. Yep, just about as much liquid as I figured would go in there. Yep. Get it all in here. We'll see if we start to see anything happening here in a little while. Get all of the palladium goodness out of this beaker, or out of this flask. All right, and we will just let that sit. So far, I'm not seeing any activity. There might still be a little residual nitric acid in there because I'm seeing a little bubbling around the coil of copper. But we'll just let it go. I mean, we can go all day. I don't care. And we'll see if anything happens. Well, okay, this has been going for an hour and a half, and really, there's nothing going on. Nothing that I can see in there. The shiny copper's gotten a little discolored, but obviously we're not going to have a rapid cementation like we do with silver. Not sure what's going on, but I need my workbench for other projects. So I think I'm just going to put this in the fume hood and let it sit, and we'll see over the next few days if anything happens. And I will do a little research on why this is not cementing out. Suppose I could switch to a different metal, like zinc or iron, and more reactive metal would probably work. But copper oughta. Anyway, I'm just going to put it away and let it sit, and I'll give you updates. Well, on my channel, you get the videos warts and all, even my failures, unlike other channels which only show you their successes. Okay. Cementing on the copper didn't work. What I have here is a really nicely palladium plated coil of copper. It's got a nice shiny, kind of silvery plating of palladium on it now, but we didn't really get any palladium cemented out. Did some quick research. Apparently, yeah, with palladium, this is a bit of a problem. Got to have a lot of circulation in there. You know, bubbles, basically. Use an air bubbler. Bubbles blowing past the copper all the time. Okay, so that's one way to do it. There's some other ways to get the palladium back out of solution. Okay, I guess it's time to try something new. So I've been watching other people's videos dealing with palladium and doing some other research. And what we're going to try today is I'm going to put this in the fume hood and warm it up. And we're going to add some potassium hydroxide crystals to it until we get all the palladium in here to come out of solution as palladium hydroxide. Heavy metal hydroxides in general are insoluble. So we're going to get the palladium to come out as a hydroxide. Now, if there's any nickel or copper contamination in here, I'd be surprised if there is at least a little bit. That's going to come down too. It's unfortunate. Now, another thing I could do is cement the palladium out with zinc, and several of you suggested that in the comments. One thing I don't like about that idea is I think we've already got some impurities in here, like nickel and copper. I don't want to add zinc to the mix, all right? And zinc is going to cement out all of the base metals in here, as well as the palladium. And we'll have a big mix of metals. Whereas if I do it with the hydroxide, yeah, I'm going to have a mix of hydroxides. But when I reduce the palladium back to metal with formic acid, I hope, I suspect, due to my research, that the copper is going to that the copper hydroxide is going to form copper formate, which is soluble in water, so it'll stay in the water. The nickel formate is only slightly soluble in water, but slightly is better than not at all. So we may get rid of at least some of the nickel in here that's in here. So I'm going with this method because I think we're going to wind up with cleaner palladium in the end. So let me get this in the fume hood, get it warmed up, and we'll get started. All right, this stuff's had a chance to warm up a little bit. Probably going to have to boil it later, so I figured I'd start with it hot. Going to add some potassium hydroxide flakes to it, a little bit at a time. Oh. What I'm expecting is to get a precipitate of palladium hydroxide. And you can see the precipitate forms, but then it goes right back into solution. So until we get the pH down enough, look at the colors. Now that's kind of odd. I am not expecting it to be such a deep, dark blue. So I'm thinking this could be an indication we have a lot of copper contamination. Let me get my pH papers and see where we are pH-wise. Because I was expecting an essentially brown precipitate, which looks like that's what we're getting. So I think that initial color, though, tells me that we've got a little bit of copper in there. Okay, so we are around 12, 13. That is really, really caustic. So that should be more than enough if I'm thinking of potassium hydroxide. So we'll just let this sit and hopefully clarify. We'll turn the heat down. Not ready to boil it yet. And we'll see what settles out. Hopefully it's going to be palladium hydroxide for the most part, and we'll see what color the liquid is once it has a chance to settle some. That'll tell me whether we got all the palladium out of it and, well, other stuff too. All right, it's been a little while and this stuff has settled for the most part. It's still kind of turbid, but we got a nice thick layer of brown hydroxide on the bottom of the beaker. So I probably didn't really need to let it settle. I just wanted to see what was going on in the beaker before I moved on. So that's what we got right there, a layer of brown hydroxide. Now the trick is to turn this brown hydroxide into black palladium sponge. So let me get this back in the fume hood and we will work on that. Alrighty, so this is back in the fume hood. I've got it back on the heat. I got a feeling we're going to have to boil it, but this may produce an exothermic reaction, what I'm going to do next. And next I'm going to put in the formic acid. put it in a little bit at a time, and hopefully this will reduce the palladium hydroxide to palladium metal, which will sit on the bottom of the beaker. And I'm hoping that the copper and most of the nickel compounds will stay in solution and can be decanted off later. So let me measure the pH, see how much formic acid I've got in there. That's pretty good. That brought the pH down to 5. I'm surprised that little bit of formic acid changed the pH that much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this boil, heat it up until it boils, and we'll see if the palladium metal sponge consolidates and sinks to the bottom. I've only seen this done before. I've never done it myself, so we'll see. It may need more formic acid, but ideally what's going to happen is the liquid should clarify and we should wind up with metal on the bottom of the beaker. That's ideal. Little is ideal in my world, so we'll see what really happens. So we'll just let this heat up to a boil and hope for the best. Well, the liquid started a low boil. I hope that's showing up. And I'm just going to let it go. Let it go for a while and see what happens. Hopefully, the liquid will clarify and the black stuff, which should be palladium metal, will consolidate into sponge on the bottom. We'll see. Alright, I put the beaker directly on the hot plates burner. I'm trying to get it to boil a little more vigorously because it's just kind of some sort of pathetic bubbling going on here. I want a more vigorous boiling. The Corningware dish is just shedding too much of the heat, and the liquid isn't getting hot. There's a lot of liquid there. So people ask me, why do I use the Corningware dishes? Am I trying to imitate another YouTuber? No. I doubt the idea is even original with him. The idea behind the Corningware dishes is I've been at this long enough. I've suffered enough boilovers and enough cracked beakers that have leaked everything out that I know the value of the Corningware dishes to catch such things. You know, if you're working with precious metals and you have a boil over, you want to catch all that stuff, not have it go all over the inside of your fume hood, try to mop it up and maybe have it run out on the ground. I mean, that is a major pain in the butt. I've had beakers crack and start leaking, and well, you know, they'll leak into the Corningware dish, and it's a lot easier to clean up and recover your precious metals. So going without a Corningware dish kind of feels like, you know, performing high wire act without a net to me, but for some reason this liquid just doesn't want to boil. I mean, there's not that much liquid there. Maybe it's just, I don't know, the nature of this stuff. It doesn't want to boil. So I've got it directly on the burner, so we'll see if we get a decent rolling boil out of it now and not this just sort of pathetic fizzing boil that's going on. I'm also going to check the pH again shortly and make sure it is not drifting back up. And if it is, I'll put a little bit more formic acid in there. Right now, I'm just trying to get it up to a decent boil. Well, that's a little better boil. Okay, let me check the pH on it and see where we are with that. Looks like we are back around neutral. So I guess it has drifted up a little bit. I think I'm going to put a bit more formic acid in. Now I'm going to do this very carefully. I'm going to use a pipette. I'm not just going to pour it in, just in case there's a strong reaction I don't want to boil over, since I'm working without a net. So there's about 3 more milliliters. there's about 3 more milliliters. See what that does to the pH. I want to keep it below neutral to make sure with all the metal hydroxides in there get converted. That's just slightly below neutral. I think I'm going to put a bit more acid in. Again, I'm kind of in uncharted territory here. I've only seen others do this. And I don't have a good feeling for how much acid they were using. Okay, so that's another 6 milliliters. And now we're getting a really good boil going. All right. Still saying it's right around neutral. Yeah. There's a tinge of red-orange to it, so I guess we're below neutral. Maybe I'll leave it alone, and we'll see what happens. Let it boil a while. See what we get. Alright, this has been boiling for a while now, and I've had it boiling harder, and I've backed it back down some. And the liquid just isn't clarifying, like I've seen happen with other people doing this process. I mean, the material went from brown to black, like it was supposed to, but it's just not clarifying and consolidating into a sponge. I've even put a little bit more formic acid in off camera, probably about another 6 more milliliters. We're definitely below neutral on the pH, so all the hydroxides in there should be converted. So I think what I'm going to do is, rather than keep feeding this dead horse, I'm just going to turn the heat off and let this cool down and settle and see what we've got. Now, if this worked, I should have a very fine palladium powder in the bottom of the beaker. It should be a very fine black powder. It should be a smaller volume than the brown powder that was there before I tried the formic acid conversion. So we'll see. In one way or another, all the palladium's still in there. I can always get it back somehow. Nothing else, throw it all in my stock pot. But let's see what happens after this cools down and settles, and we'll see what we've got in the bottom of the beaker. Well, now look at this. It's been about an hour. Come back, and we've got a layer of something very black on the bottom of the beaker. The liquid has mostly cleared. It's got a slight greenish tint to it. We'll have to do a stannous chloride test on it and see if it still has palladium in it. But that could be from copper. So, or nickel. One of those two. But it does look like we've got a layer of palladium black on the bottom. Why it didn't settle out during boiling, I'm not sure. But it does look like the process worked. Okay, we'll do a stannous chloride test on that and figure out where to go from here. Okay, let's get a stannous chloride test on this stuff. In the last light of day here, the sun's sinking towards the horizon. I'll put a generous amount in the spot plate there. Stannous chloride. Well, what do you know about that? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it looks like all of our palladium is down here on the bottom. And this faint blue-green color up here tells me that the copper contamination that we had is staying in the liquid. Hopefully, at least some of the nickel that might have come over is in the liquid too. And we've got some fairly pure, clean palladium down here. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Okay, so where do I want to go from here? I do have a little bit of experience with palladium black from doing my stock pot. I got palladium out of it. And it is tough to work with. It's about as fine as graphite. And it's going to be tough to clean this up, dry it out enough to weigh it. But I think I would like to try and get a weight on it. So let me give some thought to just how I can do that. Yeah, a bit breezy. Probably, well, I'll give it some thought and come back out here maybe tomorrow afternoon and see if I can deal with it. All right, see you then. So I think I've come up with a plan for dealing with this stuff. I'm going to do like I do with a lot of fine gold solutions is I'm going to siphon most of this liquid off of the black powder down here, the fine black powder, and then I'm going to transfer it to a smaller beaker. And we'll give it some cleanup boils with distilled water, then dry it out and weigh it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my smallest beaker and I'm going to weigh it with my most accurate scale, mark the weight on the beaker, then transfer the black powder to it. And after we've got it all cleaned up and dried out, we'll weigh the beaker again and see just how much black powder we have. I think that is one way to deal with this very hard to deal with material right here. So I will get this siphoned off and move on with that process. I'm siphoning the liquid into my temporary stock pot. Liquid goes in my temporary stock pot and hangs out here until there's room in the main stock pot, and a whole lot of stuff drops out. Get a little bit of fine gold and other PGMs on the bottom of my temporary stock pot here. It's a whole lot easier to recover than out of the main stock pot. And I do that from time to time. Usually when I transfer liquid from the main stock pot to make room for this stuff, I transfer it into my waste bucket. I'll dump this stuff in the main stock pot, and sometimes I will recover the fine black powder on the bottom of this, which contains a lot of gold and some PGMs. So the real trick to siphoning this liquid off is to get as much of it as possible without sucking up any significant amount of that fine black powder. And I think that's about as much as I dare take. Okay. But, you know, if I suck a little bit over, it's just in the bottom of my temporary stock pot here, and I will get it back sometime in the future. All right, so I will give you a look at what's left in the beaker here. I think you'll find it interesting. Okay, here's a look down in the beaker at our palladium black. It looks like a fair amount, but I'll bet it's just like gold powder. You know, it looks like a lot, but I'm sure it's not going to amount to a huge amount weight-wise, especially since palladium's a lot less dense than gold. But let's get it cleaned up, dried out, and find out exactly how much we have here, though. Alright, I got my smallest beaker and my most accurate scale out here. Let's see what this beaker weighs. It was 105.88 grams. Okay, so 105.88. Alright. So now, what I need to do is get that stuff in here without spilling any of it, and give this a few boils in distilled water. To clean it up. And then dry it out over low heat. And then we'll see just how much palladium we've got here. All right. And since I washed it out with distilled water, this can go straight onto the burner in the fume hood, and we can get this boiling. Okay, there's the first boil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off the heat, let it sit, settle, and then decant off the liquid through a filter to catch any errant particles of palladium. Put some more distilled water on it and repeat the process. I'll do that at least 3 times, and then just dry it out. Well, I was pleasantly surprised. I pulled this stuff off the heat, and it has settled almost immediately. Nice layer of black powder on the bottom of the beaker, and some pretty darn clear liquid above it, so that's good. I'm going to let that cool off a little bit more, quit bubbling, and then pour off the liquid there through a filter. Alrighty, let's decant off this liquid. Oh, I am so happy with how the palladium is staying down on the bottom of the beaker. It is behaving so nicely. A little bit coming over with the water, but not enough to worry about. Okay, that's about enough. Alright, whoops. I want to break the beaker. Alright, so I'm going to put some more distilled water on it and put it back in for another boil. And I'll do this 2 more times, and then we'll dry it out. Alright, I'm going to evaporate the rest of the water away after the 3 washes here over low heat. I don't want to boil it and spatter this stuff all over the inside of the fume hood, so low heat. This may take a while, but that's okay. I'm not in a hurry. So, once it's dry, we'll be able to weigh it. So while we're waiting on that stuff to dry in the fume hood, here's a look into the funnel and the filter that I dumped the rinse water through. The rinse water has a slight blue color to it. The first batch of rinse water that came over, I think, had most of the color, and after that it was pretty clean. But really, we did not catch that much palladium in here. It's really behaving itself. I'm liking the way it agglomerates together and sticks at the bottom of the beaker. That's really nice. Tells me it's pretty clean. Okay, so I'm going to put this with my filters and rags for when I process them. I'll get that palladium back, and we'll just wait for that stuff to dry out. Alrighty, this stuff is good and dry, still warm from being on the hot plate. That is really clumped together nicely. I'm a little bit surprised. This is the first time I've dealt with palladium where it wasn't like very finely ground graphite, so happy about that. Let's see just how much we've got here. 109.82. Okay, 109.82. Do a little math here. Okay, 109.82. Here we'll subtract 105.88. We've got 3.94 grams of palladium metal here. Now that's pretty good from right about 350 grams of the stuff that Joven sent me. So a little better than 1% by weight palladium, it looks like. And I've still got quite a bit of it, like the better part of 2 kilos of it. So I need to give some thought to how I'm going to process the rest of it in bulk and get the palladium out of it, because there's going to be a fair amount of palladium still in that stuff. No, before you ask, I'm not going to melt this down at the end of this video. I'm going to put this aside and add to it, and maybe in the future we'll melt this a nice button or bar of palladium, but I'm going to wait until we have some more, because I think I can get a lot more. Plus I have a little bit that I recovered from my stock pot sometime in the past, so I can put that with it too. So there you go. So watch for that future video where I work with the rest of Joven's stuff. I may take a little bit of a break and work on something else before I get back on Joven's stuff. I've got a whole backlog of stuff I need to do. So watch for those future videos, subscribe to see them, and if you found this video at all interesting, educational, informative, inspirational, whatever, if you learned something, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching this one. Bye.